Si je sais, j'habite au Canada. Hai, Tausch, Alushin, Boyako, Yosif, Wos, Servo, Senanojem, Yosif, Si je sais, j'habite au Canada.
Hello, everyone. Hi. So, my name is Jose. Welcome to my channel. This is my channel for language and music. That's why it's called Calliope. She was the goddess of music and language. So, I'm here today to, well, basically talk about purpose. A lot of times people look for purpose. But before we go into purpose itself, like, what did I mean by that in the first place? Like, your purpose is to be the change. Um, Yes, but I don't mean in a way that's like pushing change, more like just show up, right? Kind of that kind of stuff. But I wanted to share my dream first because for those who haven't seen it, take a look at my video, the first video I made about this whole naive evolution thing. Um, I wanted to basically, my dream is to actually live in a, well, I would say a world, an Earth world, this world that where people communicate with each other, where language isn't you can say it's a hindrance. It's not. It's actually where we understand each other more at intuitive, instinctive, intrinsic, compassionate, empathetic, childlike level. Even as adults, I know we can do this. I know we can do this. But it does take practice. It takes effort. It takes awareness. It takes time. So one of the things I've thought to myself was, creating a school that isn't really a school per se, but kind of a place, but it's not really a school per se because it's not locked into one place. It is flowing with other places as well, if that makes sense. It's where it's you come into well, so-called like a classroom and you think it's like cooking or you think it's going to the gym or where it feels like instructional stuff, you're learning something, but mm, what you're doing, you don't really realize that it is a language as well. It's in a different language. But what happens is that you realize that you're coming in there and there's not only one teacher, but a group of people or, you know, just helping you go through the whole process. And there's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of, you know, um, you come in and then first of all, you see something simple like, let's say it was German or something like that. Oh, hallo, alle, komm rein. Ah ja, ja, willkommen. Okay. Und mein Name ist Jose. Da, da, da. Wie geht's dir? Da, da, da. All those things, but they're not teaching the language. They're using the language indirectly rather, and they're teaching you about cooking itself. So literally, that is cooking. So the people you work with, or your teachers or guides that actually have experience with a specific type of cooking or a skill, and they want to share it with you, and they're there with you. Notice I said the word share. They're not teaching you; they're sharing you. They're guiding you, right? And then you're in a group of a classroom or sort of setting like that, but not really. And you're learning from each other too. And sometimes people wonder, well, if it's a language class and it's just like that, where's the structure? All that stuff? But what happens is that this is where it gets messy when we overanalyze things. The whole dream that I have about this is to work intuitively. And yes, because what will happen is that the facts we get, the information we acquire, all that knowledge, all that stuff we get from what we usually go through in school with that we did before is going to go back to its original form, which is you pick it up on the way. You pick up grammar rather than studying it. Because what's happening is we're using too much of the left brain and too much of the conscious part of the brain right here, where it doesn't sit. It's short-term memory. it has to go to the long-term memory back toward where the lizard brain is, where it's more about instinct in the limbic system here, where it's more about emotions. You remember the last time you remember something, fondly remember something, it's tied to emotions. It's tied to emotions and it's tied to having fun. It's tied to connecting with people. It's tied to, not being corrected, not being, invalidated, not, just being accepted for whatever mistakes you make. It's not even mistakes anymore. It's just like, oh, I just stumbled. Like a baby doesn't know that it's stumbling when it's trying to walk on its two legs, right? As humans, an animal doesn't. We have these judgments as humans thinking that it's like it has to be this way, this way, this way, this way. But really what it is just a mistake is not really just an error. It's not error at all. A mistake is just you went from here and then you paused for a second. There's a pause. A mistake you can say is a pause. A mistake you could say is um it's not because we were so linearly perspectived, we're linearly sort of in that mode of like, I have to do it this, I have to go from here to A to Z. And I was like, does it have to be? No, it's just being present. That's exactly how nature is. We are nature. We've forgotten that. So going back to the whole classroom setting, you don't have these sort of things like your teachers or guides rather don't actually correct you. They don't teach you the grammar. They don't teach you. They show you through what you do. But it's not even about language. Completely not at all. You go to class and you're cooking, and the next thing you know, after about a week, it's like, okay, so you're learning how to bake this, you know how to cook this, you know how to stir fry, you know how to fry this, you know how to whatever it is, boiling, whatever. And then you go into like so many different scenarios. It's so varied. And for some people, it might feel like, oh, that's kind of unstructured. But that's where the ego comes in and says, you're judging it again. But my dream is so that as we get better as humans, as we expand our consciousness. I know this sounds a little bit spiritual. And yes, I'm kind of promoting all this stuff. Yes, I am, because I strongly believe in this one. So, um, right. So it's actually, and there's nothing wrong with order. There's nothing wrong with structure. There's nothing wrong with those things. But there is order and structure in nature if we actually observe how it works, right? But we can't be extreme by saying completely like it's all intuitive, all this la di da, 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 da. We have to balance it with that too, and it can't be all structure as well and all that stuff, because otherwise it just there has to be an integration, a combination, of working with everything that's inside and outside, left, right, outside, inside, top, bottom. It's all part of it. This is the way this universe works. So now there are people who will be like, where's your proof? Where's your proof? Where's your blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. I'm not concerned myself about that. By all means, you can do your own thing, but science is showing this now. Quantum physics is showing this now. There's greater realms. There's a great understanding of things. The physical with the non-physical, all these things, it's all part of the same thing. It's all connected. It's all connected. It's all connected. So, um, so my point that I wanted to make with this one is that that's my dream. That when you have these class, then they expand into so that you go back to the cooking, right? And then next thing you know, after about a week, you go into like, oh, we need to get ingredients. So what do? You naturally go shopping, and then on the way, that's like driving, transportation, walking, whatever it is. So there's that process, and there's a process of observing the city or walking towards it. There's everything is that you see in life that you experience on an everyday basis becomes part of that process. So the classroom isn't really a classroom, it's a field trip every single moment. So that's wonderful, isn't it? So I don't know, I think that would be exciting. There are people who today may not resonate with that. They need more of that structure. That's totally fine. I'm not judging you or anything like that. But for me, myself, my dream is this. And part of that dream is also, so it flows, right? It flows. Now people are wondering, like, how does that work in terms of like, graduating from a classroom certification, blah, 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 blah. So, well, that can come along with that too, right? you can have systems like at the end of the year is when you only get tested, so to speak. It's not really a test. It's like sort of like seeing where you are. Let's keep it simple. Imagine we just want to see where you are. How much have you gotten, right? And that's not even that. That's not even the point. The point is to continuously grow. You can have from A to Z and think, oh, I'm Z, I'm done. But then if you're done, then what's the point, right? I mean, I'm not saying being eternal, like going like never ending, but at the same time, it's more like, well, if you're A to Z, if you've gone from A1 to B, C2, and then that's it, are you fluent really? Are you really fluent? Like, are you genuinely fluent? I don't think so for me. I'm still growing as a native speaker, whatever, right? So I'm still growing. It's still learning. I'm still experiencing it. And I'm not just talking about information. Information comes from directly experiencing something, like physically hands-on experiencing something, your whole self experiencing it, and then you're learning from it. That's how you really understand something. Knowledge is knowledge has no use and no meaning if it's not wisdom. Knowledge has no structure. It's not substantial when it doesn't come from actual whole embodied experience. That includes the emotions, the body, it starts there, right? So that's how it is when you're a toddler, when you're a baby. You experience these things, you as a child as well, right? The formative years, 0 to 7 or 8 years old. This is when we experience these things, right? It's the unconditioned self, is what as Eckhart puts it. If you know Eckhart Tolle, he talks about the unconditioned self and all that stuff. So it's really about being childlike. Um, so how this ties into that, my dream is that, okay, it goes into um, many things. So life itself comes into the so-called classrooms, right? And then you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, day by day, year by year, week by month, year by year. And it's not locked into like a specific curriculum. Life is curriculum. I know that sounds hippie. I don't care. That's how it is. Life is the classroom. Life is the lesson. Life is the purpose. I had a conversation with a friend last night, and she was wondering, she's speculating on these things, and you're like wondering, okay, it's okay, that's totally fine. But eventually you go back to the present moment, here and now, right now. Are we living it? When you talk to a friend and someone's talking to you, when they're not focused, they're not present with you, doesn't that invalidate you? Because what happens too, they're also invalidating themselves. Comes also ties in with stuff like what's called referred today as shadow work. The point is not shadow work, though. The point is, are we being honest with ourselves? Toddlers and babies cry. They're honest with themselves. That's true honesty because that's what they want. That's what they're looking for that. But sometimes we go like, I don't want to change your diaper. I don't want to feed you. I don't want to take care of you. But really what they're doing is you're living their light. And as adults, we were conditioned to go, you can't be that way. You can't be that way. So what happens? We're suppressing their light. We're suppressing their being. We're suppressing their existence. We're suppressing their purpose because we were also experiencing that. So this is all tied to this whole thing with the school, where you want to unrepress, decondition all those things. Not to say to escape from it or to change that, but it will take time. But this is my dream, right? So, and then it goes on to, let's go back to the whole thing. Like, imagine having this school and then it's not really a school. Again, it's not whatever. And it spreads out. And then other people who have gone through the so-called program will also have their own. It's the same thing where it's like it's all approach is very baby, toddler, childlikeness, innocence, that whole like, my favorite line from the Tuscan, Under the Tuscan Sun, one of my favorite movies, is never lose your childish enthusiasm. It's the most important thing. Live spherically. So right? And it goes into other things and it grows. So the school is like this mycelial network. It just grows. It becomes viral if you want to, if you you want to call it that. When it goes, because now we're developing more and we're building more what I consider like native speakers because they've already picked up that language and they picked up other language and picked up other language, picked up other language. And what it does, it just spreads. And then you know what this does? because it creates native speakers of one specific group of languages or language or sub-languages or dialects or whatever it is, other also what called minor languages also become part of the process. All languages become equal. All languages become like part of the process. It just flows. And everybody, imagine the world being able to, each person being able to speak like 100 something languages, not because it's like, oh, holy crap, that's insane. Oh, is that even possible? Absolutely. Right? Wasn't there a research that the brain continues to grow brain cells, that we actually have more capacity in it than normal? But we, because that's because the brain is just, it's like a storage unit. What is also being said, the magnetic field of the brain is quite like it's here, right? But the magnetic field of the heart is even bigger, right? So if the magnetic field of the heart is bigger, then we follow the heart as well. We're not disregarding the brain. We're not neglecting anything. We're integrating all of that stuff, right? So it comes down to that, again, childlikeness, integration. 'Cause children accept you for who you are, right? Before the conditioned self, of course, right? So instead of doing things like something like what a lot of programs in the world when it comes to like preserving languages and conserving languages and all that stuff, language conservation, cultural conservation, all that stuff. I've seen this many times, time and time and again. I still do, I still see it. And it's like, there's a reason why minority languages remain minority languages is because it's being approached from a fear-based approach. It's not, so instead, I would say maybe reword it. Instead of saying conserve or preserve, say deserve. I looked up the meaning of deserve, and basically it is um, to be entitled to or worthy of merit. Worthy, worth, but that starts from the inside. Worth is found within yourself, right? Or rather, not so much within, but yes, but by looking at the things you're good at, by being creative, by allowing yourself to be childlike and saying, oh, I can do this. I want to do this. I want to do something. I'm following my heart. As Bashar puts it. You guys know Bashar, channeled by Daryl Anka. Again, this is all I know spiritual stuff. He talks about how, when you follow your highest excitements, it could be something like waking up. It could be something like breathing air, hanging out with a friend, cleaning your nose. I don't know, pooping. I don't know, creating a meal, going out for a walk, walking your dog, buying something, writing that novel or starting to write that novel, writing a poem, playing some music, cooking, working out, doing a bit of finance, balancing checks, I don't know, starting your business. The list goes on and on and on, but it could be everywhere in any given moment in the present moment. It's not about what, it's about how. Right? So that's tied into what I was talking about with the dream, right? So part of this whole thing is this whole, for me, what feels like genuine communication, right? So it's compassion, presence, understanding. So beyond the words that we use and what we pick up as, if we picked up through this whole thing, imagine again going back to this whole dream thing with this whole school, quote unquote, school thing, beyond anything you've already acquired, because when we think about the words we use, we think only sometimes, okay, it's the words we use. Is it really the words? Is it really the grammar? Is it really about the what? It's not the what, it's how it's used. We understand it through context, through images. Like I see a lot of stuff online about comprehensible input, and they talk about comprehensible input, but they're translating. So what happens is it takes away from the whole purpose of what it is. This thing called the acquisitional device, as Stephen Krashen puts it, is a natural thing like breathing, as feeling, touching, the senses. You understand a message because you understand it through what's familiar. When you look at a symbol, for example, like this flag behind me, you're not going to recognize what that is. Even if you were to look at it, there's symbolism. This is a symbolism right here. But what's the first thing we recognize, the very first thing instinctively, intrinsically? Yellow, red, black. There's blue there. We recognize those stuff. And we recognize other things too. If we see a leaf, we recognize leaf. We recognize shapes. So we recognize hand movements, we recognize facial expression, body language, because that has been around for millions of years. I mean, as human as creatures, from single-celled organism to multicellular organisms, right? So it's going back to that natural thing. Some things like correction, grammar, translation, those three main things are deterrents. They're not wrong, they're just takes away from the flow of, because instead of using them first, we pick those up instead. We realize, oh, so correction would be like, we realize, okay, there's a correction, meaning like that mistake, that pause. We learn from experience. So you see what I mean? But because we're experiencing it directly from the actual thing, the body, emotions, we realize that that correction is auto correction, so to speak. It's like, when you fall, you stand back up. When we say something we didn't mean to say, like, oh, we realize later, it's like, okay, well, this is that. But it's from the individual. It cannot be imposed by another person because that's tied to invalidation. I'm not saying that's intended invalidation. I'm saying that that is a block. It's a deterrent, right? When it becomes that way. There's a way to, of course, correct other people, right? And you just repeat what they say, or like you ask a question and you restructure it. So if someone says, I I not like ice cream, you say, oh, why do you not like ice cream? I don't like pepper. Right. So, but you see what I mean? So they realize that, like, not just a silly example, but you see what I mean? It's because they hear from you from example. We learn by example, and learning by example also ties in, at least to me, with mimicry, learning by example, learning by what is familiar. The familiarity comes from our connection with each other, what we see, images we see, the eyes, the nose, the throat, the body, the height, the colors, the shape, all those things, not symbols, not icons like letters and numbers are symbols. Those are not ingrained within at least human understanding of communication. So, but you see, I hope this makes sense, right? So, and then the grammar stuff, like correction. Okay, then our second one was grammar, and it's like we just absorb those naturally through the structure itself because you realize again, I I not like ice cream, but then goes like, well, I don't like ice cream either. So they're having a conversation. The point is they're having a conversation, but because it's here's the conversation thing, the grammar is picked up subconsciously. And that's amazing because that means you naturally remember, okay, that's the way. The brain will function naturally when you let it function naturally, and you will pick that up and it will just organize things. Right? So, and then the other one was translation. When we do the same thing, as in like give ourselves the answers right away, not only is it kind of like cheating ourselves in terms of naturally subconsciously picking things up, but it's also kind of it's invalidating our ability to pick things up naturally. When I say invalidating, I mean again, it's not intended invalidation. It's not saying we cannot do this or you can. No, I mean like it's similar to correction because we're getting it right away. We just want it. It's it's not it's lazy. And there's a time and place for laziness too. Right? It's called relaxation. But when it comes to being this whole change that I mentioned earlier, this whole thing was being the change also means like working through these things for ourselves. It starts with ourselves. It starts with ourselves. So if we're correcting ourselves, if we're just getting the answers right away, if we are invalidating ourselves, it's it deterrence. It deters us from flowing in life. So that's my thing. So when it comes to being the change, this can be done. Okay. Um, So I know I was gonna say the whole thing like what if, right? I usually ask what if in my previous videos, but this time I'm kind of like pushing it. not really pushing it, but what if that was the case? What if really? Let's go back to the what ifs. What if this all happened? What if this was an actual possibility? I don't know, maybe it could be 100 years from now, whatever. But what if this was all possible, right? Imagine all these things. Imagine being able to just communicate with each other where it's not about language anymore. It's not about, it's just we naturally communicate with each other, right? So it's genuine, right? We're not invalidating. We're not getting the answers. We're not trying to cheat ourselves from potential growth and natural processing. And sometimes we want to get from A to Z right away. But what happens is when we miss the journey, we skip it, we rush it. Quality is lost. Imagine taking a caterpillar and rushing it to butterflyhood, and then all of a sudden, what happened? It doesn't build strength. You can't go inject yourself and say, I'm going to gain muscles today and be like, okay, whatever. I'm going to be super strong. This isn't some fantasy thing. Fantasy is actually uh, a byproduct of discipline. Because when we start to find worse in ourselves, we feel like, oh, we feel fantastic about ourselves. Like, we feel right. We feel fantastic about because we worked hard at something. But by working hard, it doesn't mean that it's like, we have to redefine our definition of hard work. Are we bulldozing, as Teal Swan puts it, are we bulldozing through what we do? Because if it doesn't resonate with us, why do it in the first place? It doesn't resonate with you. It doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with this person, right? So why do it in the first place? But if you feel called to it, then you do the little things towards that. Discipline is not about bulldozing and pushing ourselves and where we kind of start to keel over and right. It's like I enjoy this every moment. And you can stop for a while. You can have those mistakes and say pause and say, okay, well, I'm going to put that out. Come back to it. Right? So I hope that helps. It's a longer video than I thought it would be, but that's fine. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. I think that's about it for now. If you have any questions, comments down below, please like and subscribe. Um, I think that's about it. I've kind of, I guess, said my piece. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys later.